The slowest steps.
Welcome to Stop Listen Podcast. I'm your host Jamie. I came across a video. Came across a Dave Smith podcast on YouTube. Never heard of the guy. No, don't know where he stands on things. See on his YouTube page, he's got a picture of a donkey and elephants as part of the problem. Both and Carlson, and of course, like every time he opens his mouth, Tucker Carlson has some interesting things to say. So let's give this a listen to. It inspired some further thought. So we'll watch this video, and then I've got
not controlled by the CIA. There is a difference there.
That's exactly right. And actually, I know you know this because we've talked about it offline, but if you were to say out loud in specific terms the degree of control that specific agency, and there are many other agencies, but that one specifically, CIA, had over our public conversation and over our politics, you'd sound like a complete freaking wacko. Like people wouldn't even believe you, and yet it would be absolutely true. So I guess what I'm saying is we understate the power, and I'm speaking this from knowledge after 35 years in Washington, knowing a lot of people who work there and knowing a lot about it. We understate the power of this intel agency with an unknown budget, unknown staff, unknown reach, unknown mission. Like, it's completely out of control, like much more than people understand. It's completely out of control. And it's also completely corrupt. I was telling my wife at dinner, actually, 2 nights ago, with a bunch of relatives sitting there, we were thinking of 4 separate real estate transactions that we were personally party to or on the same street or next door to or whatever, of CIA officers, current CIA officers who are paying millions of dollars for very expensive real estate. And my wife's like, oh, what about that one? We sold our house once to a CIA officer for all this money. It's like, and the question was like, where do they get all this money? You're a federal employee. Where'd you get $4 million or $12 million? You know what I mean? Like, leaving aside the assassinations and the subversion of democracy, just the pure financial corruption of the CIA is like a mind-blowing story that the average person knows nothing about. True.
Yeah.
Is like a mind-blowing story that the average person knows nothing about. True.
Yeah.
So that got me thinking about this video. I have not seen this in many years, but it's from a lot long ago. Did I do my proper research? This is President Dwight D. Eisenhower's farewell address. The infamous, if you're familiar with those times, the military-industrial complex speech. In 1959, it was when this speech came out, about the same time that Cuba was going through the revolution, that the Castro and his communist rebels brought on.
From the White House in the office of the President of the United States, we present an address by Dwight D. Eisenhower. This is the farewell address for President Eisenhower, whose 8 years as chief executive come to an end at noon Friday. Mr. Eisenhower has chosen this time for his final speech. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. First, I should like to express my gratitude to the radio and television networks for the opportunities they have given me over the years to bring reports and messages to our nation. My special thanks go to them for the opportunity of addressing you this evening. 3 days from now, after half a century in the service of our country, I shall lay down the responsibilities of office as, in traditional and solemn ceremony, the authority of the presidency is vested in my successor. This evening, I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell, and to share a few final thoughts with you, my countrymen.
That's what it sounds like, countrymen.
Like every other citizen, I wish the new president and all who will labor with him Godspeed. I pray that the coming years will be blessed with peace and prosperity for all. Our people expect their president and the Congress to find essential agreement on issues of great moment, the wise resolution of which will better shape the future of the nation. My own relations with the Congress, which began on a remote and tenuous basis when long ago a member of the Senate appointed me to West Point, have since ranged to the intimate during the war and immediate post-war period, and finally to the mutually interdependent during these past 8 years. In this final relationship, the Congress and the administration have, on most vital issues, cooperated well to serve the nation good rather than mere partisanship, and so have assured that the business of the nation should go forward. So my official relationship with the Congress ends in a feeling, on my part, of gratitude that we have been able to do so much together. We now stand 10 years past the midpoint of a century that has witnessed 4 major wars among great nations. 3 of these involved our own country. Despite these holocausts, America is today the strongest, the most influential, and most productive nation in the world. Understandably proud of this preeminence, we yet realize that America...
So he's not apologizing for America's greatness. And we're 3 minutes in, and I don't know what party he's in. I failed on homework again, but he, I believe, is a Republican. I believe Nixon was his vice president, ran against Kennedy and lost. I know Nixon was a Republican, but we don't know yet. He's talking like a uniter. That's what we are, and he thanks the news, which was interesting. But if you think about it, it was a recent addition to the world to have that as an option for a president to speak directly to people and have his message heard quickly, within moments, immediately on the radio or, recordings. Before that, it was, it wasn't that long ago, newspapers brought by horses is how people found out what was going on. So, it wasn't that long ago. Fantastic. Well, he thanks the Congress as well.
America's leadership and prestige depend not merely upon our unmatched material progress, riches, and military strength, but on how we use our power in the interest of world peace and human betterment. Throughout America's adventure in free government, our basic purposes have been to keep the peace, to foster progress in human achievement, and to enhance liberty, dignity, and integrity among peoples and among nations. To strive for less would be unworthy of a free and religious people. Any failure traceable to arrogance or our lack of comprehension or readiness to sacrifice would inflict upon us grievous hurt, both at home and abroad. Progress toward these noble goals is persistently threatened by the conflict now engulfing the world. It commands our whole attention, absorbs our very beings. We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method. Unhappily, the danger it poses promises to be of indefinite duration. To meet it successfully, there is call for not so much the emotional and transitory sacrifices of crisis, but rather those which enable us to carry forward steadily, surely, and without complaint, the burdens of a prolonged and complex struggle with liberty, the stake. Only thus shall we remain, despite every provocation, on our charted course toward permanent peace and human betterment. Crises there will continue to be. In meeting them, whether foreign or domestic, great or small, there is a recurring temptation to feel that some spectacular and costly action could become the miraculous solution to all current difficulties. A huge increase in newer elements of our defenses, development of unrealistic programs to cure every ill in agriculture, a dramatic expansion in basic and applied research. These and many other possibilities, each possibly promising in itself, may be suggested as the only way to the road we wish to travel. But each proposal must be weighed in the light of a broader consideration: the need to maintain balance in and among national programs. Balance between the private and the public economy.
That's what we say.
Balance between the cost and hoped for advantages. Balance between the clearly necessary and the comfortably desirable.
That has the checkbook.
Balance between our essential requirements as a nation and the duties imposed by the nation upon the individual. Balance between actions of the moment and the national welfare of the future. Good judgment seeks balance in progress. Lack of it eventually finds imbalance and frustration. The record of many decades stands as proof that our people and their government have, in the main, understood these truths and have responded to them well in the face of threat and stress. But threats, new in kind or degree, constantly arise. Of these I mention two only. A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. Akin to and largely responsible for the sweeping changes in our industrial military posture has been the technological revolution during recent decades. In this revolution, research has become central. It also becomes more formalized, complex, and costly. A steadily increasing share is conducted for, by, or at the direction of the federal government. Today, the solitary inventor, tinkering in his shop, has been overshadowed by task forces of scientists in laboratories and testing fields. In the same fashion, the free university, historically the fountainhead of free ideas and scientific discovery, has experienced a revolution in the conduct of research. Partly because of the huge costs involved, a government contract becomes virtually a substitute for intellectual curiosity. For every old blackboard, there are now hundreds of new electronic computers. The prospect of domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money is ever present and is gravely to be regarded. Yet in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite. It is the task of statesmanship to mold, to balance, and to integrate these and other forces, new and old, within the principles of our democratic system, ever aiming toward the supreme goals of our free society. Another factor in maintaining balance involves the element of time. As we peer into society's future, we, you and I, and our government, must avoid the impulse to live only for today, plundering for our own ease and convenience the precious resources of tomorrow. We cannot mortgage the material assets of our grandchildren without risking the loss also of their political and spiritual heritage. We want democracy to survive for all generations to come, not to become the insolvent phantom of tomorrow. During the long lane of the history yet to be written, America knows that this world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate, and be instead a proud confederation of mutual trust and respect. Such a confederation must be one of equals. The weakest must come to the conference table with the same confidence as do we, protected as we are by our moral, economic, and military strength. That table, though scarred by many past frustrations, cannot be abandoned.
During the Eisenhower administration, there was attempts to pass the Civil Rights Bill, essentially the same thing that was passed under the Johnson administration. But they played politics with people's rights, and it didn't happen during Eisenhower. And that sounds like what he's referring to. Sounds like that old Republican is pushing for equal rights. Wonder when the messaging changed.
For the certainty agony of disarmament of the battlefield. Disarmament with mutual honor and confidence is a continuing imperative. Together we must learn how to compose differences, not with arms, but with intellect and decent purpose. Because this need is so sharp and apparent, I confess that I lay down my official responsibilities in this field with a definite sense of disappointment. As one who has witnessed the horror and the lingering sadness of war, as one who knows that another war could utterly destroy this civilization, which has been so slowly and painfully built over thousands of years, I wish I could say tonight that a lasting peace is in sight.
63 years ago?
Happily, I can say that war has been avoided. Steady progress toward our ultimate goal has been made, but so much remains to be done. As a private citizen, I shall never cease to do what little I can to help the world advance along that road. So in this, my last good night to you as your president, I thank you for the many opportunities you have given me for public service in war and in peace. I trust in that service, you find some things worthy. As for the rest of it, I know you will find ways to improve performance in the future. You and I, my fellow citizens, need to be strong in our faith that all nations under God will reach the goal of peace with justice. May we be ever unswerving in devotion to principle, confident but humble with power, diligent in pursuit of the nation's great goals. To all the peoples of the world, I once more give expression to America's prayerful and continuing aspiration. We pray that peoples of all faiths, all races, all nations may have their great human needs satisfied, that those now denied opportunity shall come to enjoy it to the full, that all who yearn for freedom may experience its spiritual blessings. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility, that all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth, and that in the goodness of time all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. Now, on Friday noon, I am to become a private citizen. I am proud to do so. I look forward to it. Thank you, and good night.
Sounds like a great man. Full of gratitude, and don't know
President Eisenhower, who spoke this evening from his office in
what his politics were. I think he loved America, though. But what got me thinking, so something that's always been kind of a mystery to me. So, as I mentioned, about when he gave that speech was when Castro invaded Cuba. The next few years during the Kennedy administration, we had the Bay of Pigs. They're supposedly trying to overthrow the government. The CIA went in, some military. Castro seemed, if he knew it was coming, prepared by locking up his opponents days before the invasion. But Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, that naval base, one Obama talked about all the time, shutting down. Maybe you haven't. I've heard about it for years. But that has been a naval base in the United States since 1903. So if we were worried about communists spreading, as Eisenhower just said, why would the United States seemingly allow for that to happen? We'll never know. But it's because we've empowered these people that they don't have to answer these questions. This message from President Eisenhower 64 years ago, and you heard what Tucker said. You can connect the dots. You can see where things are. We've let it happen. We've allowed them to make kings of themselves. We post on Facebook and vote for politicians who lie and don't have our best interests at heart. So I hope you enjoyed this. I think I'm going to do Kennedy's secret society speech that he gave months before he was assassinated. I want to do that next. So I hope you enjoy. So please, that's all I got.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man, you just go on there and point and click. It's real easy, man.
So, like, subscribe, comment. Please follow me on Twitter, James Jost. I post funny stuff. I like making fun of the Richmond, north of Richmond. You know, the guys who are keeping us from being happy. So,
all I want to know is who's coming with me? Who's coming? Who's coming with me? Huh?
see you next time.